There have been several questions that come in with regard to reaching people of other faiths, whether it's Baha'i or Hindu or Muslim, and the whole issue really with Jesus and the exclusivity of the gospel.
Sure.
Would you mind addressing that?
Yeah, do you want to give me a couple of the specifics?
Okay.
Or just one of them?
I have a Muslim friend, and we enjoy each other's hospitality and friendship. Recently, she stated, "It's wonderful that you as a Christian and we as Muslims are united in our belief of the same God. How can I lovingly respond to this?"
The specifics are always better, aren't they? That's a great question. I love the fact that whoever you are, you're in close community and sharing food with Muslim friends. So important, and so that is big tick for you. Well done. And that's really the starting place of being able to have these kinds of conversations in a way that is cordial. So my advice in that situation would be questions. That's not going to surprise you. Ask questions. So you could say something like, I'm really surprised to hear you say that, because it's my understanding that the Quran teaches that God is one and that he doesn't have a son. Do you actually worship a God who has a son? I'm really excited to hear that. And see then which way it goes. It may then well go. So, do you see what I mean? So you ask a question that's friendly and warm and open, but that leaves the person able to say, "Oh, no, God is one, and he definitely doesn't have a son," or lead them open to say, "Yeah, I do think Jesus is the Son of God," and then you can lead them to Christ. Most likely they're going to say initially at this point, no, God is one. And you can say, well, actually Christians believe that God is one, but have you ever heard of the Trinity? And then you've got a wonderful opportunity to explain how God's being is one and he is three persons, and how it's only possible for God to be loving in himself if he's actually Trinitarian. See, if God is one, without him being Trinity, he can only learn to love as a secondary characteristic after he's made something to love. So love is not integral to him. You couldn't define him as love. But guess what? The Bible in the book of 1 John says, God is love. And that is so powerful. He can only be love if within himself, within his Trinitarian being, he's loving. His love is not dependent on having created something to love. He didn't learn to love after he made us. He's already love. And so that could then open up a conversation about the nature of God. Oh, how could God be loving if he's not Trinitarian? I've always wondered that. That's a great question then to ask someone to begin to think, and then maybe you'd have the opportunity to share how the Trinity actually works. Is that okay?
The exclusivity of Christ.
Sure. In terms of the exclusivity of Christ, again, I would want to make that kind of context and question dependent in terms of how I would approach explaining the exclusivity of Christ. So, for example, some people object to the exclusivity of Christ on the basis that it's arrogant. How can you know that Jesus is the only way, and there are all of these other paths? You are unbelievably arrogant to assert that. If that was their particular objection, I might use the story from the Hindu Vedas that a lot of people are actually familiar with about the elephant in the jungle. Have you heard that one? There's an elephant in the jungle, and there are all these blind scribes around the elephant. And one of them's holding the elephant's trunk, and he's saying, it's a snake. Someone else is holding the elephant's ear, and he's saying, no, you're completely wrong. It's not a snake, it's a banana leaf. Someone else is holding the elephant's tail and he says, no, you two are both wrong, you idiots. It's a rope. Someone else is holding the elephant's leg and he says, you three are all wrong. This is a tree trunk. Okay, and the moral is all the faiths have a piece of the elephant. If only you could just be, a bit less arrogant and just accept that everyone's got a piece of the pie. Ever heard that one? Yeah, that's in the Hindu Vedas. So, I might use that story and say, often people imagine it like this, and people go, oh, yeah, that's what I think. And then you say, well, let me ask you a question. What is the difference? There are actually two main differences between the people inside the story and the person telling the story. What are the two main differences? Difference number one is one of perspective. So the people inside the story are so close to their little bit, they can't see the big picture. Difference number two is much more fundamental. The people inside the story are blind, but I can see. Okay, so think about it like this. Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, Moses, Muhammad, they're all blind. They all made exclusive claims. So they are all totally blind. But me, age 19 at Cambridge University, I can see. I can see the whole of ultimate reality. And I can tell you that all of those paths get up the mountain, because guess what? I'm above the top of the mountain. I can tell you that all of those silly people are just holding a tiny bit, because I'm standing back and I've got the big picture. I know it all. Here's my question. Who's arrogant? Is it less arrogant to be the person standing back from the jungle saying they're all part of it than it is for Jesus Christ to say, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. I think it's not less arrogant. Both those positions you could say are equally arrogant. In other words, arrogance is an inadequate basis on which to decide who's telling the truth. The question is it true? Is Jesus the only way? Or we might come at it a different way and say, well, who would be able to make a path to God and make a claim like this? It would only be God himself. A human being wouldn't ever be able to do that. And a human being who did try and do that and say, this is the only one, you losers, anyone else who tries to make another one is out. That would be crazy. But that's not the Christian claim. The Christian claim is that God has come to us and made the way. And it's not a path with a lot of rules and directions. It's a person. And he's made a way through his cross. He's not saying meet these objectives. He's saying, I've made the way for you. So it would slightly depend on the context as to which way one would go about it, but it would probably be something like that.